Hello everyone and welcome back to JB Subtle Gaming. Now if you were to ask people in Warframe what is the best melee weapon in the game, you might get answers like the Atarax, the Legion, or you might get an answer like one of the Zaws, particularly the Infested Zaws. Well, those are weapons you can create on your own with different parts, and now we have the ability to do that with secondary weapons, with the Kitguns. So we're going to talk about the 4 different main types of Kitguns. Now I am breaking them down by their main fire components. I did however put a mix of other types of things in there so that we have a full crit build, a full status build, and then some builds in between. So we're going to take a look at 4 different of these Kitguns and let you know what I think about them, test them out, and if they're worth building, and if they are potentially going to be some of the best secondary weapons in the game. Alright, the first weapon we're going to be looking at I called the Dayz. For those of you a fan of a certain movie, you might get that reference. I thought about calling Huckleberry anyways. So the Dayz is a single shot sidearm type of weapon. However, what makes this a little bit unique is it has an explosive shell. So it'll fire out like a normal pistol sidearm, but then have an area of effect that has an explosion in. So the parts in this is the Tomb Finger Chamber, the Slap Needle Loader, and the Ramble Grip. So what do these do? The Slap Needle gives us a little bit more critical chance than status. It's not the maxed out one, but I definitely wanted some status in this because of the area of effect, but I still wanted to do decent damage with its kind of single shot there. The Ramble has a high rate of fire and lower damage, but again, it's not those maxed out. The reason I went with that is while I want this to do decent damage, I also want to get a lot of those status effects out quickly. So this is going to, kind of be a slightly leaning towards critical and slightly leaning towards rate of fire. Now, for the build for this one, I did kind of a standard elemental build with gas. Now, I want to point out that these weapons, they can be used for all different kinds of things. You can build them all different ways, and you can definitely use all different setups. Now, the first 3 I'm going to show you are relatively, I guess you could call them standard elemental setups, and then the last one I have something a little bit unique. I did try doing a corrosive build with this, but I just want to say we're going to show off against level 110 enemies here, so like we were doing sortie 3 or something like that, and this didn't do so well against the Corpus. The status effects definitely hit on other people and took some armor off, but it's just kind of clunky and slow, and I wouldn't use it for that. So this one we are just going to show it off, or we're just going to show off against the Corpus, excuse me, and not against the Grenier. It wasn't great against the Grenier. So I do have Prime Pistol Gambit. I do not have Prime Target Cracker. Obviously, if you don't have Prime Pistol Gambit, just use regular. If you have Prime Target Cracker, use that. I would have to format it one more time in order to put on Target Cracker here, but pretty much just kind of a standard build. I did add at the end the heated charge here, so I have the 60/60 mods in order to bring up our status chance, which we can see is 80%. Our crit chance is 89. So this is a pretty balanced hybrid build, and then this just to bring up our gas damage so that we can get a lot of those procs. So let's go ahead and show off what this can do and talk about what we think about this weapon so far. So let's go ahead and get some Corpus techs in here. We'll bring in level 110, like I said, and let's bring in 8 of them just to show off. Okay, simulate, and how effective is this weapon? Well, it's interesting. I like it. It's pretty good. And you can see if we start shooting enemies here, we have a pretty decent rate of fire. I set this up to have a pretty decent rate of fire. And one of the nice things is with this gas build, you're going to get these procs where you're going to do damage over time, past the shields of enemies, and potentially, damage or kill multiple enemies. You can see the area of effect on this cloud here. Let's not zoom in. And you can see, we're getting damage. We're getting procs with this area of effect. And it's pretty good, and it's pretty effective. While this isn't absolutely mowing through these enemies, it's doing pretty well. And overall, I do like this gun. I do like the area of effect. You can definitely build it differently. You can build it for a slower fire rate and more damage. And we'll show off a pure status build and a pure crit build. But overall, it's pretty effective. The explosion is pretty cool, and I like it. However, I just was not having success against high-level Grenier enemies, trying to do that with the corrosive build. So let's go ahead and reset the enemies and show off another one here. So let's go and show off another Kitgun. And let's show off the That's the frickin' laser beam. So another movie reference there for those of you who are wondering about that. We don't have any sharks to put it on, but so this weapon has the gaze, which is kind of the regular beam weapon, if you will, for the secondary fire. It has the deep breath. So the deep breath is basically high capacity. The reason I want to do that is there's a slight, it's a very small, but a slight ramp up time on beam weapons, and I just wanted to be able to have, you know, a decent amount of sustained fire. It doesn't really do anything other than that, it just has a maximum capacity. And then it has the haymaker grip. So what that does is it has maximum damage, and normally on a secondary weapon, the thing that you are doing with that grip is you're affecting your damage and your rate of fire. With beam weapons, it's slightly different though. It affects your damage and your range. So with this weapon, we're going to get maximum damage, but minimum range on it. So if we were to take out our builds here, I do have a corrosive and a gas build on this one, and we will show this off against a Grenier actually. So a very similar build, not really much else than you would expect. So basically we've got gas damage. This does do radiation inherently. Each of the weapons have something to do inherently, and that's part of the reason I also wanted to show off a corrosive build with this one, is because of that inherent radiation damage, so we can build for corrosive and radiation. I just didn't think the Tomb Finger one was all that effective at it. So we'll show off the gas first, and I think this one, and also this one has I believe a meter of innate punch through, which is kind of nice. You can build and you can add more to it, but you'll see if we shoot this first enemy that we can get some punch through, but also we are getting, with that gas damage, the effects going off to other enemies. So that is not the weapon doing that. That's just basically the area of effect of the gas damage. And you can see this ended up being quite a bit more effective. Now, this isn't going to go through corrupted heavy gunners as quickly as that, but you can see that that worked pretty well. And I'm pretty happy with that outcome with the friggin' laser beam. So let's go ahead and check out some corrupted heavy gunners. So we'll do the same thing here. We'll bring in 8 of them. We will simulate, and we'll get rid of the Corpus Tex. Alright, and we'll switch to our corrosive build. So the Tomb Finger overall, I'm sure there are other builds out there that you can do stuff with. And I'm not saying that that weapon is bad, but with the build that I have done so far with it, it's been the one I've been kind of the most disappointed with. And in general, other than, I really like the Akjagara. Other than that, I don't tend to play kind of the regular sidearm ones. So Corrupted Heavy Gunners obviously are much tankier enemies. However, you can see, and we're not getting that gas area of effect, but even so, even with a corrosive build against level 110, this weapon isn't the, and you can see the punch through there, taking out more than one target. So if we finish this guy off, we should see, yeah, so this guy's almost gone here. So there is some of that innate punch through, and obviously the gas damage when they're grouped up is nice, but against level 110 corrupted heavy gunners, this isn't going to be, I actually took out the one behind first, probably based on the corrosive procs. It's not, you know, the most amazing sidearm at taking out heavily armored enemies, but overall I don't think it was that bad. Alright, so let's go ahead and actually we want to go back to the text here, because we're going to go to our next build. Alright, so bring in you guys, bring in 8 of you guys again, and we will show off the Rat Tat Stat. So you may be wondering what's that all about. So I wanted to do a complete status build. So let's go ahead, and this is obviously, the Rap Tap Stat is obviously a reference to something in the game. If you don't know what that's referencing, then I look forward to you finding that out, because it's one of my favorite missions. Alright, so we have the Rattle Guts, which is the rapid fire here. We have the Ram Flare, so this is the maximum stat, minimum crit damage. So we'll see this is going to be a status build. And then we have the Gibber Grip on this one. So this one gives max rate of fire, but minimum damage. What I wanted to do with this build is try to just get as much of a status proc as possible. And the thing with this build is I tried to do a viral bleed build. And the reason I tried to do that is there is slash damage inherent on this weapon. In order to do that build, I had to put the mod on to increase slash damage, because you can see slash is lower than puncture, and it kind of worked, but not great. They're just, if there was a lot more slash and a lot less puncture, then I feel like you could probably more easily do a viral bleed build. Obviously this is a secondary, so we can't use hunter munitions. So if there's a primary, obviously we could use that with a crit build, but that is just not the case. You can see we still have 11% after you guild it, even with the minimum crit chance, but it's still something I didn't want to build for. You can see I have 99.9% status. This isn't a shotgun. You know, I could try to get to 100%, but I didn't really bother. And I do want to point out, these aren't necessarily the ideal builds. These are just things I threw together. And with this build in particular, I kind of went crazy with the rate of fire. I just wanted to get as many procs as possible. So this is more of a testing for fun build than anything else. You can definitely, you know, do a lot of things with this. And all the other weapons I'm showing off, I have 4-mud 3 times. This one I've only 4-mud twice. And again, I like it. Yeah, did we lose that? Okay. So let's do this again. Let's bring in the text here. I like this weapon. I think I like it better than the Tomb Finger, but it's, again, maybe a different build. I kind of wish I'd gone with more of a crit build with this one. I might even turn this in and do more of a crit build. That's not to say it's bad, because, oh boy, do you get a lot of procs. So, as you can see, with the maximum rate of fire and then the mod to give me more rate of fire, that was kind of what I wanted to do with this. This is not, again, it's not great against heavily armored enemies, but against the Corpus here, you can see all those procs, they work pretty well, and it's pretty fun. So, for the most part, these weapons, I feel like I've been able to build pretty well against the Corpus and not the Grineer, although the laser beam has worked out pretty well. Now, and overall, this is a fun build, and this is kind of I don't want to call it a meme build, but we just went full out rate of fire trying to bring as many procs as possible, and I've definitely had fun with it. Now, the last one I want to show off here, so let's go ahead and equip, and let's bring up our Kitguns again, is our Pocket Plasma. So this is the Catch Moon here. So this is the one that's going to be a bit like an Archiplasmorphier. Now, the Killstream loader, that is the one that is maximum crit and minimum status chance. And then the Love Tap, this one has good damage, slightly slower rate of fire. So a lot of things are going to have like slightly increased one, slightly lowered another, or fully increased one, fully decreased another. So I wanted decent damage, but I still wanted to be able to fire this one. And this is the first one that I have built. And honestly, it's my favorite. I really like the way that this weapon fires. I really like what we can do with it. Oh, and we should show off the actual build. Now, this one, I also went crazy. I've decided I want to try to take full advantage of what we can do. So you can see we have 100% critical chance, slightly over 100%, with our Prime Pistol Gambit. However, this one's a little bit different. So we have our multi-shot like you would expect, like I have on all the other ones. And then we do have a gas build. So we still get up to 41% status because of the multi-shot and because of using the 60/60 mods here. Now, this one, because it does, let's see here, this one does heat innately. So I only have to put one mod on to get to that gas, which is another nice thing. And then the rest of the stuff, we can devote to crit. So with this one, we have a slightly different build. We have hydraulic crosshair, so on headshot, a huge increase in critical chance when aiming, and then sharpened bullets on kill, a big increase in critical damage. So I decided to just go on full crit. Well, you can see this is the super crit build. So this one you have to aim and you have to get kills. Now, I know some people out there, including me, don't really love on kill effects. However, with this build, I am willing to do on kill effects when I think it's worth it, and I think it's definitely worth it on this build. Now, first of all, I want to point out the one major negative thing about this style of gun is it catches on things. So that's fine, but right there, you can see just the edge of this shot. It's got kind of a wide shot, not as wide as the Archiplasmor, but if the edge of it catches on anything, it just stops your shot, which can get a little annoying, and yeah, I'm not necessarily a fan of that. You have to think about that while you're playing. Shots that you didn't necessarily think would be stopped. However, this will, much like the Archiplasmor, while this does not have an 8 punch through, it does go through enemies and travel its full distance. Any object will stop it, but enemies will not. So, let's get a kill. And yeah, especially after we get a kill and they're all dead. Yeah, this is pretty good. Yes, you have to be aiming. Yes, you have to get headshots. Yes, you have to get kills. But when you do, that was level 110 corpus text. So yeah, that's pretty good. Now let's go ahead and switch to the corrosive build here. Now, obviously, this is not going to be as effective. We don't have, in order to get corrosive here, we still have a draw crosshairs here. I did drop the on-kill effect, though. That's definitely something you could add back in if you want to drop something else, but it's a little bit harder for us to get to corrosive because you can see we have that innate heat damage on this weapon. So the innate heat damage really makes this weapon ideal for the corpus, but we can take this against corrupted heavy gunners. We can take this, against heavily armored enemies. It's just not going to function as well. So this won't be nearly as fun as the last test where we got that headshot, we got that kill, and then we were just destroying enemies. What? Are they over here? Yeah, that's right. I forgot. I left the other one in. So this is fine. So as long as we don't, like, knock them off, we should be fine. And we're going to knock them off, aren't we? Yeah. Well, let's try to get a kill before we knock somebody off. And as you can see, this is going to go kind of slow here. So we don't really need a kill. So it's okay. You know, there are definitely sidearms out there that can do more, but as you can see, we're getting some pretty high crits still. We're getting 2, 3, 4, 5,000 on the crit. So it is okay, but I definitely, for the most part, find these weapons to be more useful against the enemies in the area where you can build them in, which I guess makes sense overall. You know what? Let's show it off one more time, because this is just, this is actually, so this is the corrosive build. This is not the max crit build. And even so, you can see these enemies they're not as tanky. So overall, I don't think these weapons are going to be ideal to bring against heavily armored enemies. You can definitely build them that way, but they're going to be more effective against the corpus enemies. Or, obviously, you can build them against the infested, and a heat damage is good against the infested. You saw how that just ripped through those corpus enemies, even with the build not designed for them. So you can do lots of fun things with them. What do I think about these kit guns overall? Well, I think they are fun. I like that you can build them different ways. I'm very happy with this build, and this is a weapon that I might bring on. Yeah, I could potentially bring on a secondary only sortie weapon. Do I think they are the best sidearms in the game right now? No, I don't. However, they're good. They're real good. And I think if we get some other components, like we got infested components with one of the events, we might get to that point. However, if I am bringing a sidearm to something, I might bring my Atomos, or I might bring this baby. So the buff to the static core's area of effect, yeah, it's just good against everybody. And hey, if you want a video on my static core build, and you can see I can just aim at the ground and do stuff, and you might say, that's not killing all these guys all that quick, but now they're all dead because of the area of effect. Yeah, this is still my go-to secondary right now. The Atomos is next, and I don't think the Kitguns are going to replace them anytime soon. However, if I'm not going against heavily armored enemies, I think they're fun. I think you can really kind of go crazy with the builds like I have tried to do, where I've tried to go just full-on rate of fire with the status attack, full-on crit, things like that. And because you can manipulate both the components of the weapons and the builds of the weapons, I think there are people going to come out there with even better builds than these. And overall, I think the kit guns are good, and I find them fun. I like the idea of kind of creating your own thing, naming it, and seeing what you can do with it. So no, I don't think they're the best secondary weapons in the game, but I think they're kind of worth investing in and having fun with. So thanks a lot for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe. We want to try to grow the channel, get more people out there able to see it. Maybe if we keep doing it, eventually we can do some giveaways, get noticed. That would be great. But I'm really enjoying this game. I hope you appreciate the time I put in to putting 11 forma into these to kind of show off what they can do. And do your own build. Obviously, I just kind of wanted to show off what they could do with kind of semi-standard builds, although, again, you can vary what you want to do with it, but this one's been my favorite so far. So maybe if you're only going to build one, this would be my suggestion. But then again, depending on your playstyle, pick what suits you. Try out the Kitguns. They're pretty cool, and if we get some more components, they might even become more powerful in the future. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone, and we'll talk to you again soon.